Hi, this is the Be Well with Michelle Greenwell podcast. Our heartwarming conversation is designed to lift you on your wellness journey. Grab your cup of tea and enjoy the podcast. There we go. Welcome everyone to the Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell podcast. And today it is my pleasure to have Theresa Stone with me of Lightworker Navigation. Hello, Theresa.
Hello. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So when Theresa and I get together to do work on a project, we bring our daily goals and ambitions with us to the conversation, and then usually magic unfolds. And so that is the best way that I can describe it. But it just changes the way the project goes. It changes the way both Theresa and I end up with new ideas and this energy that goes off in another direction. And that's what I wanted to capture for the podcast today. Now, you might wonder what this kind of looks like. So as we are no longer about the list of what we hope to accomplish from that list that we've made, nor getting into the details and the needs of the day. Instead, what happens for us is we're often guided to explore beyond our mind's eye, past our capacity to know what we want, to a place where two souls can gather as needed, and then we become this conduit for instructions on how to proceed. And I'll say proceed in our muggle world. Yes. How do we go back to that linear thought pattern? And that's the way the last couple of conversations for the podcast have gone, is going well beyond where we've been, and to really bring us into a place of understanding that when we let go, more happens. And when Theresa and I gather for something as simple as a newsletter, it's like we talk about the newsletter and then we talk about all kinds of other things, and both of us end up with inspirations going in other directions, and the newsletter as well. So
that is beautiful. It's the synergy of relationships, I like to say.
Exactly. So I want to give you a little bit of background about Theresa so you know kind of who you're dealing with. She works as a divine alchemist healer. She's connected to the earth and galaxies, embodying being a clear and open channel. And she brings forward divinely guided wisdom for the people that she works with, for their highest good, for their growth and for their soul's evolution in the quantum field, and through the use of combined spiritual wisdom. And that she's honed over the last 20 years of her career. She says with a sigh.
It's been a journey, Michelle. It's been a journey.
All right. She finds great joy in the transformative space of love that assists her clients in shifting the emotional densities they might have, attachments, insecurities, fears, uncertainties. None of us are recognizing this list.
Nope.
Providing them with relief, peace, ease, empowerment, and tools for their next inspired action as they move forward. She's honored to help those guiding her way as they continue awakening into the remembrance of their true divine brilliance, and inviting them to harness their own innate abilities to live masterfully and to love wholly. I just love that part. So I suggest that as you're listening to this podcast, number one, make sure you got a cup of tea ready to go, that you are sitting with a notepad and a pen just in case, and then hold on to your hats, because we're going to have some fun as we dive into the topics today. So, Theresa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I didn't warn Theresa about having a cup of tea ready, so she's got her bottle of water. Do you infuse your water?
I do love infusing my water. I love coconut, mint, and peppermint. And sometimes I'll throw in some cucumber occasionally, and I'll kind of mix it up too. Ginger's also something I really do love infusing. And I mean, I know I don't have my tea with me, but my favorite tea is peppermint tea. Like, it's just my go-to. It helps me relax. It helps my tummy and my digestive system. It's all around one of my favorites. It's like my go-to comfort tea, and I'm always stocked up and ready to go with my peppermint tea. So that is my favorite. So
Awesome.
after this
Awesome.
though, I probably will go get a cup of tea.
Of course you will. Well, but today was the launch day for a new tea series. And so you and I are talking after the launch. And I prepared the tea that I've got ready for today, but I also prepared the other two blends. So they're sitting here and I'm going to hold them up because the thing about tea is it's different colors. So here's one, here's the other.
Jeez.
And the third one, which really surprised me today because it was really, really bright. Look at
Oh
this.
wow.
So
Look at
this is
that.
like, oh, bright, bright pink. It's lovely. I know not necessarily on the podcast, you'll be listening, wondering, what did I just do? And I held up 3 wine glasses. And each wine glass had, one was purple, one was amber orange, and the other one is like a fuchsia pink, I guess is what I would say. And color really changes the way that you can have an experience with tea. So peppermint usually gives you a really light, clear color. And so it's a different way to connect with it. But what I'm going to highlight is a couple of ingredients that comes from the Fit as a Fiddle tea. And this is brand new. This is part of the Natalie McMaster set. And I chose this tea for several reasons. I chose the tea first with my thought about the health associated with the phrase, we all want to be fit as a fiddle. So that was the first part. And fit as a fiddle, I was like, what does that phrase mean? But we hear it a lot. And then we have the second part, which is the sturdiness of the wood that creates the fiddle. And then the history that comes with that. So the intention that is on the package says, I'm just going to bring this up here, heart-centered living flourishes when opening to your true passions in life. Now,
That's beautiful.
what Theresa does with her work is helps people find that passion and then the clues that go with that passion of where to go next. That's what she's doing with it. And what I'm going to bring forward, and the reason for I put the tea in the middle of the podcast is for us to get a healing process started. So while you're listening to the podcast, you can think about what your goals and intentions are. And at the end of the podcast, the energy will be towards that. And so the tea is our way of getting there. I would like you to consider then the fiddle, the history of the wood that goes with it, the land it grew on, the people it experienced around it. Then you've got the strings, you've got the hair on the bow, you've got the bow itself, and then you have the musician that holds the magic of the music. And there's a special relationship that goes on in all of those pieces. And we're going to talk about relationships and what interacts on a much more galactic level. But if we come back to a couple of those pieces, if you start to really think about how all of this comes together, the power that's within it. So I want to highlight 2 herbs. So I didn't pick peppermint today. I picked lavender.
That's okay.
Lavender is very close to peppermint and has a lot of the same qualities. But I wanted to bring out the lavender. Now, Fit as a Fiddle is actually an orange pekoe. It is a black tea, but it is surrounded by herbs. Lavender is about purity, peace, tranquility, and it also highlights the power of the crown chakra to connect us to our higher power. And because that's what we're talking about today, that was important. And as we begin exploring your experiences that you have, Theresa, with the guides, intuitives, inspirations, this herb is an opportunity to open up and to learn more about ourselves. Okay, so we've got lavender, and now we bring in apple. So this is also interesting because apple shows up in quite a few of my blends, not necessarily on purpose. It's just the way they come together, but it's a connection to our ancestors and to our future, which is interesting. And we have the wisdom, the nourishment, the sweetness of life to bring forth a surge of possibility for our future. Now, those two generations, I'm thinking ahead, those 2 ingredients come together to link, and they go across generations for us. They bring us through space and time. And the idea of the spirit of the fiddle to voice these messages becomes so powerful, especially if the fiddler is open to receive the inspiration of the music, its composer, those who played the tunes before, and for the transformation that the listener will experience. Okay, and that's just two ingredients from there. I'm just so excited to keep learning more about these blends and what they mean. So Theresa, with the water that you have there and the intention that you've infused into yours, I have Fit as a Fiddle here in my wine glass, showing off the bright amber color. And cheers. Thank you so much for coming and joining the show.
You are very welcome.
Mm.
And may I just say that I read through all of those the teas that you have with this new launch, this new series, and I'm just like, I could feel the essence and the energy that was really being brought forth with all of them. And I think they're going to be a real like hit with everybody, just as they start to really connect in with that intention, with the herbs, with the herbs, with the way that they're all blending together. You really do have this magical skill for bringing tea to life. And I know that it's something that I'm really passionate about to try. I still have yet to try a lot of these teas, but it's coming. It's coming. And because I have always loved blending and mixing my teas together. So while I do love drinking peppermint, I also like to add in like the lavender or the chamomile or whatever and make my own synergy blends. And that's what you're really doing in essence with the tea here is you're creating synergy blends that are blending together that intention and honing the emotional experience that you're really imbuing with each tea as you sip it and you experience it. So it really becomes an experience as you're being taken on this journey. And I absolutely love that. So kudos for you to like getting into that and really diving in. It's so beautiful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is. Well, they have a life of their own. They're like my own guides as well. They're a guide from a different direction, but
Yeah.
but also when you start to get to know them, that's the interest because they have personality and the personalities change. The colors change on the tea, and as they sit in the cup, they're changing, and that's also really interesting because then you start to think about it again, how we do things and how we perceive and how we move through things, and we're not the same in the process. We're changing all the time.
Yeah,
So,
we really are. Yeah. And that is really the beauty about letting, the universe, like allowing the flow of the universe and really, allowing yourself to be in the flow of the universe because then you can allow that magic to happen.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Let's dive in. And I know lots of times people will ask the question, how did you get into this work? But I'm not going to go there. I thought, because those are always interesting stories too, but we often tell them. But rather what I would like to know is how your daily activities are influenced by your guides and the messages that you receive.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting question, Michelle. And I actually never really gave this gave this question much thought or really even would even consider thinking about things like that. So I suppose as I really kind of feel into that question, like how do my daily activities, result in or take shape when I do receive the guide, like the messages from my guides. And in retrospect, I'm a big fan of setting intentions and goals. And which, as you know, like when you have those intentions and those goals really help, create like a clear guideline and an outline for the universe and our guides to actually give us that intuitive information that can take us on that journey that get us closer to achieving those goals. And so most of the days I receive my downloads and the guidance kind of in a daily way. Like I'll wake up in the morning and I'll get an insight, and then kind of throughout the day there'll be little, more downloads, and they're usually like in the way of like a ringing in the ear, but not all the time. Sometimes it's, like I'll have a conversation with somebody and there'll be like some insights. They'll be like, oh, that's important. I need to write that down. And so really they're talking to me throughout my day. And even when I go to bed, it's like I'm still getting, that guidance that comes through. And so sometimes that those intuitions or those downloads or whatever, they'll tell me kind of you know, oh, today you're going to be going out. It's like, oh, you need to go for a drive today. Oh, you need to go for a walk, or you need to go to the grocery store. The next thing you know, I'm having amazing conversations with people, or I'm, you know, leading myself down a little trip, or I'm seeing something that catches my eye, or I'm getting an insight and it's a download and I'm starting to like write everything down. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really amazing stuff. And so I kind of put it away because I never know when it's going to take shape until the next kind of download comes. And so I kind of live my life, you know, with that flow and that ease, listening to that intuition, listening to the whispers that the universe, like the trees, you know, the wind, the stuff that comes through every day. And I allow it to take shape and to guide me, you know, to actually achieving those, you know, intentions and my goals. And so it's really interesting how, you know, when you start to surrender into that guidance, how you can actually start to see the results of your goals taking shape. Like it's really beautiful actually. So thanks for asking that question, because that's really a different way to kind of see how your daily activities can really benefit when you start to listen to that guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I had a conversation. We lost my mentor about almost a year and a half ago. And Greg Webb was a major influence in all the work that I do. And it just kind of wove in there. And I didn't realize how much until, of course, he's not here to bounce ideas off of. However, I was looking at some of the work that he had done, and we were trying to figure out how to take it forward.
Okay.
And I had an idea. I'm just telling this example because as people are trying to think about what does that all mean, this is how this works. So in my mind, I'm like, here's how we can do it. I've got my focus and I'm like, here we go. I know how to fill all the boxes out. I know how to check it off, and I can make a program. And then I stopped and I thought, what would Greg want? What would he tell me if he could tell me? And I just sat there with my pen on the paper.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, this amazing program unfolded.
Beautiful.
It included what I was thinking about, but it was only a small portion of what ended up being on the paper. And then I met with his wife to talk about what we were going to do. And our initial conversation started out just like you and I, small,
Yep.
and then it went went like this, and then it was like, wow, we had no idea where we could take this little piece of information. And if we had stuck to the list or the trajectory that our brains felt that we should be on, it would have been so small.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been profound, and it also wouldn't have had the impact that it really should have. And so I just wanted to give that example because once again, it kind of hit me over the head with, oh yes, ask for direction instead of saying, I know the best way. With my limited knowledge, here's where I'm going to go.
And that is so beautiful because that really is the art of surrender, right? That's surrendering into the flow and allowing what we think are, we set the goal, it's an outline. And then the universe works its magic with us to create something even better, right? Which is so beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. I love that.
It was just so profound and so recent. Yeah. So, okay. So now what I'd like to know is, by listening to your insights, what are some of the guidance pieces where you went, wow, thank goodness I listened here?
Oh my goodness. God, there's so many here. But basically, I find that the more that we see the world unraveling and the more that, we're seeing change and the growth and everything shifting so quickly, being taking that observer role and really looking at it from an outside perspective. I've seen so many scenarios in my life. Well, for example, there was one that actually just popped into my head right now. So we're just going to go with this one. So basically, this was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I had the whole entire day, my next day, like planned out. I was going to get up, get showered, get dressed, get out the door, run all my errands, and be home by, say, noon. Okay. And it was weird because when I woke up in the morning, I literally had such a hard time getting out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, why can't I get out of bed? Like, I've got things to do, all this stuff. And I kept kind of in this internal struggle. This like dialogue was going on. And I just kept hearing, no, you need to stay in bed. Just rest and relax. You need to stay in bed. And I'm like, okay. And it was getting to be about like 10, 10:30, 11. And I'm like, okay, guys, I really got to get up here. Like, what's going on? And they said, nope, stay in bed another 5 minutes, then you can get up. And I'm like, okay. So I followed this guidance, Michelle. It was crazy because I was like, oh my God, my whole entire day is going to go out the window. But, it was interesting because as I got up and I was about to go out the door, I mean, yes, it was winter time. So there was about like 6 feet of snow, or not, well, not quite, probably about 4 feet of snow in between like the two houses of our neighbor and I. And I'm about to leave the door and like out the door, and I get a phone call from the neighbor, and she's telling me that she had just left her house and the fire alarm's going off. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. And she goes, can you go check to see what's going on? And she's got the kids, but the dog's at home, so she's frantic. And here I go, like, I don't even have my boots on yet. I'm still in my slippers and I'm trudging through the snow to get to her house. And I feel the door, I look in, I'm like, okay, well, I don't see anything. Everything looks okay. And the door wasn't hot. So then she goes, well, it says the fire department's on their way, but I'm really, really, really worried about the dog. And so I slowly open the door and smoke comes billowing out. And I says, well, okay, there's smoke, but there doesn't look like there's any like fire or anything like that. So I go in, and here she had left a pan on her stove and it was on low. And who knows what would have happened if I hadn't been there. So thankfully I heard the guidance that says, don't grab a hot pan, like take a towel. So I didn't burn myself, but, so I grabbed a towel, took it off, and, turned off the burner and, opened up the windows and doors and everything. And, now, the fire department probably would have got there in time, but who knows, right? Like it could have been a matter of seconds before that pan with the oil in it ignited and started the kitchen on fire, but so it's things like that. So really, when you start to listen to that inspiration or the insights and that guidance, when you surrender into that, those are the little things that can, like, I mean, that was a little bit bigger of a thing, but, simply sometimes even just hearing, turn left when you always go right, and you're having this inner dialogue. You never know why you're being told to go to the left versus the right. Sometimes it could just be to see, to avoid an accident. But one time I was told to turn a different way and go home. And when I had turned the final turn to go home, there was this beautiful full moon that had lit up the sky. And I just was like, it just took my breath away because it was so beautiful. And I would have never seen it had I went the other way. And so little things like that. So it's finding the small gifts as well as the big gifts, and really surrendering into where you're meant to be, because everything happens in the perfectness of divine timing. So I'm not sure, does that answer the question? Yeah. Okay.
Well, and for people who maybe don't trust their intuition or think they don't have it, and wouldn't know what to listen for, then that gives that example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could think, well, you just wanted to be lazy today. Yes, some of us would like to do that, but it's starting to understand that inner knowing and the whispers, and they're not the whispers of the head with judgment or self-doubt, because those aren't the whispers. those are the sabotaging pieces. But it's the part about something is out of place.
Yeah.
Something doesn't fit. You have to put more effort in. And that's your indicator. It's the wrong way. It's the wrong time. And then to start to build that intuition. And people may have that already happening for them, but they don't realize, because they've never been said they're an intuitive. They've never been said they have guides. They, would like to talk to their ancestors, but, they think, well, that's just me having a conversation, but not realizing that, these conversations can come in. Yeah.
Yeah, like my mom is classic here. She always tells me, "Well, that's you. That's your thing. I don't know how to do that." And then she turns around and tells me that she had a gut instinct that, so and so was going to give her a call, or so and so, was going to have a baby, or I had a feeling that was going to happen. And so it's really about learning to trust your inner self, that feeling, that gut instinct, because we have those intuitive hits all the time, but it's often been programmed out of us because of society, right? Like we've had, oh, that, don't listen to that, or don't do that, or and so we get you know brought up a certain way to believe that that's not true, or that's, we shouldn't trust that, or whatnot. So it's really about understanding that it's the subtleties, because sometimes, as much as I would love it, when I'm asking a question for guidance, it's like, okay, which direction should I go with this? For example, you were saying you were creating a program. It's like, okay, what does the program need to be about? And how does it get laid out? And as much as I would love for them to just give me a full detailed, thing all laid out, sometimes it's having a conversation, or like you did, sat down and you got quiet and you grabbed a piece of paper and you listened, right? Sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's watching a movie, sometimes it's having a conversation with an old friend that you haven't talked to for a while. Honestly, sometimes it could even be just a conversation with a lady in a parking lot, or a person in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened to me too. And the next, it's sparking that insight, that inspiration that's allowing you to take that next step. So it works. The universe works in such a beautiful, mysterious way. And yet when we learn the language of the universe, the whispers, the dancing of a leaf is sometimes is even a message. An animal showing up is also a message, right? Like little things, the subtleties. Then we can actually start to unravel and unpack the messages that come through. And it takes practice, I will say. It takes practice, and it takes trust, and it takes a lot of faith, I would say, as well, to
Mm-hmm.
really start to trust that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it happens
Mm-hmm.
though. It does happen. The more you practice, it does get there. It gets easier.
Mm. And I'm thinking about, again, listeners thinking, well, I don't know if, I could put that effort and time in there. But then you think about the effort and time you put into a habit that doesn't support you, effort and time that happens for the wheel of doubt that runs through your head, or the repetitive voice that keeps telling you the same thing over and over. Like,
Yep.
you hold on to those things, so you already are exercising. You're just exercising in the wrong direction. And then you start to bring your focus around to, I want to know more. I want more insights. I want to be able to hear what's going on. And
Yeah.
then you can start to exercise the effort in the right spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love that. That's a really beautiful way of putting it.
Okay, so I thought I was going to just drink one cup of tea, but I ended up with the three because of the launch. And as you were speaking, I was like, the autograph is pulling me in. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is so interesting because I didn't
Right.
anticipate this. So I'm going to shift to the autograph, which is all about finding what your gifts are and
Yeah.
then making sure you share your gifts, because then it magnifies for other people, which is what you and I experience when we get together, because our two worlds collide, and all kinds of wonderful gifts come forward. So I want to move over to the autograph, which is kind of interesting because I also want to ask you the question about the journal series that you've
Right.
put together so that people can start to build their insights and start to hear and know what's coming to them. So, and in there,
Yes.
you can autograph your book. Both you can
I
put the
can.
autograph in as the author, but also they autograph it by how they commit to the writing in it, or the working through the exercises. I'm going to shift over to my tea, and I'm going to let you talk about your journals.
Journals. Well, thank you, Michelle. I always love the opportunity to share about the Conscious Insight Journal series. Now, this has been a passion of mine for the last couple years, and honestly, I had no idea that this would even transpire. Okay. So, firstly, I'm going to say that I am a journaler and I have always loved writing. And I have kept a journal for pretty much most of my life. Of course, give and take, having a baby and getting married and the couple like transitions in life, sometimes, it would fall to the wayside. But for the most part, I always journaled. I recorded my thoughts. And I do really enjoy writing. And what I really didn't realize was that as I stepped more and more into honing my abilities and the talents that I just naturally had, I actually realized that I'm a conscious trans channeler. And for people who don't know much about channeling, there's those that go into like a trance channel where like they kind of step out and somebody kind of will come in and they'll be speaking through them. And then there's those that are conscious as a conscious trance channeler. So they're bringing information and wisdom in from like that higher self perspective, from their guides, from their wisdom figures, from their spirit team, and they're sharing insights that way. And so that's really what I've come to understand is when I'm channeling, I'm bringing through this insight. And so what I realized probably about 6-7 years ago was that my journal insights and the journal recordings tended to navigate away from, oh, well, today, kind of sucked. I had, as like the young kid kind of growing up and you're sharing and expressing your emotions and your feelings, it actually started to be more like, oh, well, today wasn't the greatest day, but, I actually saw that, through this experience, I realized XYZ, right? And so it became more of like these insights that allowed me to start switching my perspective, getting grounded, developing more of self-love. And so I kind of put these on the back burner. And what I also noticed too was that I was recording them with like little voice notes, or I was, doing some recordings just for myself to try to get me comfortable on camera and being recorded in that way, because I was feeling the intuitive guidance coming through that I needed to start sharing these insights. And even though I was like, well, would I just write a book? Who would want to hear what I have to say? These kinds of things were coming up for me. And I realized that was a lot of fear that was starting to come up. And I was making excuses for not wanting to take that further and explore that. So even though I was getting all the guidance coming in saying, this is the next step for you, it was like I was pushing back on that guidance. And it was like this internal struggle for a while. And it was actually when I got invited to write in the Heal, You Have the Power Volume 4 compilation book, right? Mm-hmm. That I actually began this unraveling of the fear of that, like making excuses. And in that chapter that I wrote in the book there, it was really about my journey almost of actually unraveling that fear and recognizing the gifts and pushing through how I actually was able to even put a piece of writing out in a book that was going to be shared with the world. And then from that moment, I was like, I caught the writing bug. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I got to write more. So then I started channeling more insights and more downloads were coming through. And then shortly after that, I decided that I was going to start Lightworker navigation. And I also around that same time had a course come across my path that was about creating low content, like journals and those kind of things that you could put out for sale. I took that course because I says, here, take this course. Little did I know that it was going to be the foundation for me creating my journal series, right? So, because I had forgotten really that I had even taken that course and I had finished it and completed it and whatnot. And then I was working on kind of playing around with some fun little things for, just minor little journals that are just kind of blank pages, whatever, with fun little covers. And I just kind of put all that in the back pocket. And then I officially launched myself out of the spiritual closet, and as you know, Michelle, when you launch yourself in a business, you got to put yourself out there. You got to start putting yourself, getting people to know who you are on social media, in your newsletters, on podcasts, in networking situations. And that terrified me. It was like another layer of the fear. It was another hurdle to jump over. But I pushed through. My guides were giving me the support, my family, my friends. I have a really great support system that is really there for me, always cheering me on. And I started putting posts out on social media and writing things in the newsletter. And I did that for about 7 months. And then I was seeing that people were not really noticing. People, and I was getting again, more guidance coming through saying, oh, no, we need to do something different. We need a different resource. We need a different way for people to actually, experience this because this isn't enough. And so at the same time that I was getting these downloads, I actually got reached out to by the creator of the Opal Rising magazine, and she wanted me to come on and become a columnist. And so that gave me pause. I was like, what? You want me to write in your magazine? Really? Like, I was so surprised and yet honored at the same time because she had been following everything I was putting out and everything I was writing, and she actually saw value in what I was saying. And so I thought, wow, maybe there really is something to these insights. And so then I shortly after that happened and I said yes, it was like saying yes opened the door. And then I got the last downloads that I needed that brought the name of the Conscious Insight Journal. And I didn't yet know it was going to be a series. But I knew that I would be writing at least a couple journals and I'd be taking people on a journey between, through the insights. And I got all the information, that there'd be 6 channeled insights in there. And then actually it was you and I having one of our, conversations that kind of steered us off the rails. But I mean, it's not really off the rails because we're still being inspired, that allowed me to see that, each one needed to be themed and we needed to bring in a wisdom figure. And then it just expanded and it exploded from there. And I just caught the writing bug and I sat down and it was like everything just flowed out, just like you were speaking earlier, how you laid down, you just, for me, I didn't pick up pen and paper. I literally just put my fingers to the keyboard and everything just laid out. All these journals, like all the volumes, they're telling me there's going to be 11. So 8 has completely been like laid out with the titles and everything. 9, 10, and 11 are still a little bit in the works. And I think it's really because as I work as a conscious trance channeler, the beautiful thing about the journals is that these insights that I'm getting, I get to experience them and I get to go through them and I get to see the benefits and the growth and how it has shifted me and transformed me and transmuted the heavy, dense energies and has created a deeper relationship with myself that I now can share with others so that they can actually start to see the beauty of their own innate abilities, their own divine essence, and bring that forward so they can share their gifts and abilities with the world as well. And that's really what the Conscious Journal Insight series is all about. It's walking people through a journey, allowing them to, release those emotions, those trapped, densities, and allowing them to shift and soften into, those perspectives shifts that allow them to see the gifts and what's happening around them. So thank you for asking me about, to share about the Conscious Insight Journal, because you can really hear how passionate I am about it. And it's actually taking a little bit of a turn as well, because in our last conversation that you and I had, we talked about how we can start pairing the teas with intention with it. And I've sat with this and I'm like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. And I was reading through your teas on the website and I was feeling into them and I was connecting in with my guides as I was, saying, okay, is this really the next step to go? And what would be the best one for this and for that? And it's kind of even sparked even more of a passion for the journals for me, because it's like, oh, I can take this deeper. I can take people more on a deeper journey with these journals. And it's just, I am so excited to even take this to the next step. And so I am actually working on volume 4 right now, and that is on perseverance. And it's going to be launched in October. It's very exciting because it's really talking about the resiliency that we have and how we can dig down deep and really shine that warrior within to overcome all the circumstances, all the chaos or whatever is occurring in our life. So I'm really passionate about that one. I mean, I'm really passionate about all of them, but this one is really, I don't know. It just speaks to me. They all speak to me, but I love them all.
Well, too, and it's where your focus is at the moment.
Yeah, that's
Because
true. Yes.
once you've brought that volume one through, then and it's like the teas too, because you can be in the creative phase
Yeah.
of it and you're totally involved, and then you kind of let it go. And it's like having children. You kind of let them go, see what they're going to discover, and then you come back and see who are they now, and then what does that
I love
mean?
that.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
beautiful.
yeah, and the teas, when I said, I'm trying to find their personality. They're going to show me their qualities and how they're going to influence my life and how they're going to lift me up. And when I go to the tea cupboard, I'm not going, I'd like to solve my digestive issue at the moment. I'm going, so in the conversation I'm going to have with all the people that are coming for dinner tonight, which one is going to help me get the best conversation going? That's what I'm thinking about.
Right.
And that's where the personality then comes up, because then oh, this tea is going to be the one to create conversation, or this one is going to be the one to pull out the passion. And the same with your journals.
Yeah.
People want to go on a journey. They haven't got a clue where to start, or they start in a few directions and it'll be hit and miss. I'll try this, I'll try that. Well, that don't resonate with that. This didn't work out so well. And then they go back to old patterns.
Yeah.
But by working with your journal, then they have this opportunity to dive in a way they never would dive in and gain some insights that you are able to pull from them because of the way the guides have asked you to put it together.
Yeah.
And that opportunity then means they're going to be transformed when they get to the end of that journal in a way they cannot imagine or even begin to fathom what would be included and where that would take them. That's what I love about it, because you can have that blank journal and you can write in it.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you have at the end? And then you can have the one that has some prompts of things, Wellness Wednesday or Magic Monday. What happens for you? They're nice, but they're not the same as really transforming your life and saying, what else has this life got to offer me on this trip? I want to really be impacted by what's possible. And your journal allows for that discovery with the things they haven't been able to experience or to bring in that they would know is even available.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, so far I've heard back from a few people who've already purchased like volume 1 and 2, and they're like, oh my God, the way you write is so beautiful. I never thought about that. And just you really have opened me up to actually a whole new way of thinking and, looking at the world that I never actually even considered before. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I actually have one friend, she's so cute. She's like, I hope you don't think me a cad or anything, because I actually just purchased the journal and I just have it kind of sitting there and I've only kind of skimmed through it. But is that okay? And I said to her, I says, of course it's okay, but it's because the journals are embedded with so much sacred geometry and intentions and um, energy that is actually holding a transformational energy, even though you might not be working with it, say like writing through it. It's still actually working its magic, because it's holding this high vibrational frequency that's still unraveling those densities on an unconscious level. So I always say, however you're meant to work with the journal is absolutely perfect for you. And there's another lady who says, well, I don't write. I'm not a big writer of journaling or anything like that. I says, well, people have actually been reading through the journal prompts and they've been recording their thoughts, which I thought was really clever too, because usually most people have their phone with them. And so they can read through, or they can have those, voice notes and those little insights. And again, in essence, this also helps you to start trusting your intuition, start listening to that gut instinct, right? Because you're opening the heart more, you're opening to the possibility that there's more beyond what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're sensing. And so it's really beautiful how they work. Like, it's very subtle, or it can be really deep dive. It just depends on where you're at and where you want to meet the journal. So it's really fantastic how they work.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to do this because our audience listening, I want them to think a little bit differently because we've got why it would be powerful to do this process.
Yeah.
But if you were to go back to yourself as a child, when you
Right.
had the awareness that you had these abilities, these insights,
Yeah.
what would that younger child tell you now?
Oh, oh my. It's funny that you asked me this because I do actually think about this every now and then. Like, oh boy, if I knew the things I know now back then, you know, wow, how different would my life be? And then I actually stop myself from going any further because, as we were saying earlier, everything happens in the perfectness of divine timing. So I know that all the experiences that I had as a kid that, led me to, the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs of life really helped to shape me and who I am. And even those experiences are actually helping to bring to life these insights that I'm sharing in the journal. And so I guess if I really had to tell something to my younger self, um, oh God, it would be
Actually, the other way. Tell your younger self is telling your older self.
right. Well, my younger self would definitely tell myself now to keep going, to have fun, and don't forget who you are, because oftentimes I've gotten lost in that, right?
Mhm.
And I would probably tell my younger self to hang in there, be strong, you're capable, trust your gut no matter what anyone tells you, because you are magnificent. And I'm so proud of you. And those are the things that I really didn't hear as a kid. So those are what I would want to share with my younger self, because I would feel that those would actually help to stir and bring forward more of that passion to keep going. So,
And isn't that
yeah.
interesting? Because how quick we would be, as a child, right? All the
Yeah.
little mistakes that we made while we were learning, which other people have completely forgotten, but then we beat ourselves up about something you said the wrong way or did or whatever. And then also that feeling all the way through school because you're being measured, how
Yeah.
good you are at your exams or whatever, you're being measured. And then you're always measuring yourself as I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough.
Yeah.
Yet the wisdom that can come from the other side to say, yes, you did have everything you needed.
Yeah.
You were doing everything the way you needed to do it. And why worry about that? Let that
Yeah.
go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably why I do pause a little bit and go, you know what? I really wouldn't need to go back and tell my younger self really anything, because it's really helped to shape who I am, except for, keep going. You're capable, you're strong, you're resilient, you have everything you need. You're so magnificent, you're so loved, you're so important. Like those are the positive messages I would tell my young self. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, I do a lot of inner child work. So I've actually told my young self this when I'm in my, and when I'm in my own sacred space and my own
Mm-hmm.
meditations. So, and I do tell myself this still daily. And I think that does help to consistently, stay in that loving, positive, grounded space, where you're feeling supported. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love that. Great questions. Really great
Mm-hmm.
questions. It's a really, really great to kind of pull things from again, a different perspective. I love that. I'm all about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and too for the listeners who um, they think they're on that journey and they think they're on the path where they want to go, but
Yeah.
if you don't change your perspective, you actually haven't got a clue that there's anything different. So you really do have to find a way to change perspective. So I always
Yeah.
like to try to look at it through a different lens or reverse things
Hmm.
and see what happens with it, because you
Yeah.
never know what you'll pull out. Because even an experience that you had, we go, oh yeah, I had this great experience, and you tell the story of it.
Yeah.
But one person asked you a question and you go, I have no memory about those details. I'd completely forgotten, and in your mind you could go, that was the toughest day ever. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, that was the day that was so magical. And now you've
Yep.
gone from effort to no effort in the
Yep.
same day, same experience. But your lens
Yep.
was just slightly shifted. And
That's so
in
true.
that slight shifting, you might have lost a gift. And to be able to come back and reclaim that gift and bring it forward, it just would be so powerful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's magic.
Okay. Oh, I know we're just coming up. The time goes
Yep.
so fast. I knew it
I
was going
know
to
it
do
does.
that.
Yep. It sure does.
But I
It's so
wanted
much fun too.
I wanted to ask if there was an exercise you could recommend for people, or that you could just offer for how to get to the higher self and their soul's purpose. Now, I know that's a monster question, but I'm just like the tiny little thing that says, pay attention to this and see what
Right.
happens.
Well, actually, I actually was gifted of while I was honing my skills over the last 20 plus years here. I was actually gifted an exercise that I actually still use today, and I actually morphed it a bit, and I actually share it out as a PDF for my clients. That's called the Sacred Room. And in essence, what it does is it gets you to create a sacred space that you feel very secure, very grounded in, very safe. And in that room, your conscious self is there, right? Like you're in a meditative state essentially, and you're calling your higher self in, and then you're calling your guides in, your team. And while you're in this beautiful sacred space, you can ask questions to your higher self. You can ask questions to your guides. You can start to unpack, the emotions that you're feeling, or looking at how to switch things, and looking at what your experiences, like say it was you were having a hard day and somebody at work is bothering you or something, and you don't know quite what to do or whatever. You can actually go in, talk to your higher self, talk to your guides, and ask them, what else do I need to see? What is this showing me? What's the gift here? And you can ask these really powerful questions while you're in this room. And it really does help to connect you with your higher self. And it actually will start to help to unravel like the denseness around it, to bring you things to help you switch your perspective. And it's a really powerful exercise, and I used to do it almost every day when I first was gifted it, but now I'll really only step into doing it when if I'm really at like a turning point in my life, or if there's a really big challenge that I'm dealing with, or if I'm really trying to create something and I'm feeling a little bit stuck or blocked. I'll go in there, and then it's like I can even pull in like the contract and the agreement that I might have created around this that might be blocking. So it's a really great exercise, and I have that written up with a PDF. So I don't know how I could share that, but in essence, you're creating a sacred space, asking your higher self to come in and your team, and really diving into the guidance and the wisdom that they can share in that space. Does that?
Wow, that's awesome. That
Yeah.
gives everybody a great way to start. And then if they enjoy that piece of it and realize the potential of what you can unfold for them or pull the veil off of, then I hope then they'll know now what they could do with the journals and how they
Yes.
could bring that all forward.
Yeah.
So as we come to our close, how can people find you?
They can go to my website, and that is lightworkernavigation.com. And they can also email me too, which is lightworkernavigation@gmail.com. So it's pretty simple to find me. I'm also on social media. So if you go to my website, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So they can find my socials at the bottom of the website as well. And yeah, that's a pretty easy way to find me.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. All right. So as you were doing that last part, doing the exercise, I
Yes.
shifted over to the kitchen party tea.
Ooh.
And it's the first time I had the flavors that came up with it, which was really interesting. So perspective through my taste buds had already shifted, which I've never experienced that before. I mean, you experience, oh, this tastes really good. Oh, I like the flavor of, but this was the different herbs started to come forward. So I'm just going to share that because
Beautiful.
it may not be through tea that you're going to experience that, but you might go to the pot of soup. You might just go to what you're finishing your day off with. and all of a sudden a couple new insights or stuff that's been in the house you never noticed come forward, and their influence then becomes more impactful. I'm not sure what people will be looking for and noticing, so I'm just going to say it that way. And and that's the value. And thank you for this, Theresa. That's the value of having a balance while you're listening to the podcast.
Yes.
It shifts you to a new place. And that's what we hope when you're listening, that you have this opportunity to then be where you want to be, rather than where you have been and where you might be stuck. So we want to really pull you forward. So thank you very much for sharing all that you're sharing, but also for the way that you're doing outreach to support people. And I think this journal series is going to be absolutely amazing as people begin to really work through them and play. So best wishes for the success of the launch of each of them. And then for how you decide retreat-wise, workshop-wise. I know you do the markets around the Edmonton area. So however people are going to find you and be able to interact with you, all the best.
I do things online as well. So that's awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, and I should mention too that people can purchase the journals on Amazon, or they can reach out to me directly.
Perfect. Great. All right. So with your bottle of water, and now I'm on kitchen party.
Great way to end it, I think.
In my high-stemmed wine glass, I love being able to hold the color. It's so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah. It's kitchen party just keeps changing its personality. I love it.
Which is so good. And because it's new and you just launched this, it's going to take you on a journey as well, which is really beautiful. And it already is beginning. And I can see the magic unfolding with it, which is so exciting. It's so exciting to see how it's going to transform and transpire and just really take you on that magical journey.
Mm-hmm. And with that, thank you for listening. All the best. Be well. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening to Be Well with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. There are a couple of resources I want to just point out. When you go to the website greenwellcenter.com, you'll have a pop-up window. That pop-up gives you the top 8 easy stress releasers that you can use every day. That's something you can put beside your computer, the bathroom mirror, beside the bedside table. A great resource. Also, my YouTube channel. It is full of playlists with all kinds of different ways that you can activate energy and bring vitality into your day. You can find that when you go to YouTube at Michelle Greenwell. And last, if you're a Linktree person, Linktree, linktr.ee/Greenwell Center. That has all my resources in one spot. Those are for intricate little things that you can't get everywhere. And it's a wonderful way for me to be able to share all the different aspects of the kind of work I do. So thank you for listening. Be sure to drink that tea. And if you want to have the tea blend that was shared in the podcast today, then be sure to check out capebretontea.ca. Have a wonderful day.